And we're live.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Inside Movies Galore. I am your host for the evening, but I would like to say that we are continuing our good friend Ron, who has been part of the group for quite some time. One of his last picks for this month. And it just so happens to be 2010's Universal remake of The Wolfman, which is directed by Joe Johnston and written by Kevin Walker, David Self, having Kurt Siodmak from the 1941 motion picture being behind the original screenplay. That being said, let's see what IMDb says about the movie. Upon his return to his ancestral homeland, an American man is bitten and subsequently cursed by a werewolf. So, let's go into first impression.
Damn, that was sexy, dude. Whoever did that.
Since you spoke up, why don't you go first?
Well, comically true to character, I didn't actually get to watch the movie. I was delayed because of work, and I didn't realize it was in there. But from an outsider looking in, I can describe to you some of the key points that would make this seem like more of a legitimate remake than other ones, okay? You got Anthony Hopkins, who we've also already known as like Van Helsing and shit from previous Universal adaptations. You got Benicio del Toro, which you can't go wrong with. I really enjoy the redesign of the Wolfman. He's got more of like a hulking, stocky appearance, while like somehow being like Jason Voorhees tall, which is pretty awesome. And I like the whole sleek, no nonsense vibe that they did with the advertising for this. So there's a lot of things that point to this having been a movie I should have watched long ago, but since I am a lazy slacker who spends most of his time watching low budget shit that I probably shouldn't be watching, I have not seen this yet. But I did watch it once, kind of like blasted, so there are little bits and pieces of it I feel like Carl's right, I might remember as we go through this here. But I'm also going to be providing an outsider point of view, I suppose, when I do chime in. Okay. Does that make any sense, Dave?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
I mean, this movie has a lot going for it, even just looking at it without having seen it. So
heading
I
over
imagine
to
that
Ron
bodes for good things to come.
Heading over to Ron, who chose this movie for the night.
Who's Ron? Who's Ron? I'm Larry Talbot.
Okay, Mr. Talbot.
I'm the actor, Larry Talbot. I loved the original. It scared the hell out of me as a kid. So much that my mom told me, she took me to a grocery store, and I saw a black man with a really heavy beard, and I kept screaming, "It's the Wolfman! He's gonna get me!" My mom felt really bad for the guy, but so as a kid, it terrorized me, but it ended up growing from terror to love, and became one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Really, as much as I love Dracula and stuff, I just always had something. And every time I watch any other werewolf movie, I'm always like, "That's not a werewolf. That's just a damn wolf." Like, this is a werewolf to me. I mean, it's a wolf man, but I don't know. I always liked this type of werewolf, the Wolfman. Just looked really cool, and I loved it. Then going on to this version, I didn't see it in theaters, but I did see it shortly after it came out, and absolutely loved it. I was like, I couldn't believe how well done it was, that they added to the original story without destroying the original story, they changed a little bit that just added to it, that just made more sense and didn't mess up the original story at all. So this version was just so well done and so enjoyable. And of course, the special effects are they were great in the 40s. I mean, just absolutely great. They added a few things in this one that they couldn't have done then. That was really great. Made it a little bit better. But the original, of course, was in black and white. And I don't usually care for black and white, but this movie I loved. Black and white or color, it doesn't matter. I love the movie. So, pretty much my first impression of this movie.
Ooh. All right, let's go over to Kotobukijake. Was this a first time watch for you?
No, this was not. This was the second time I've seen this. I believe, and Brandon can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we watched this together to prepare for the Oscars that particular year. This
indeed
did indeed strangely win an Oscar for its makeup, so we were prepared for that. That kooky makeup branch, but I vaguely remembered it. I thought I liked it well enough when I saw it. I thought it was interesting. I don't think I had seen the original Wolfman. I think when Dave put that forward, what was it, a couple years ago? I think that was the first time I'd seen that one. So this kind of came first for me. So now I had an opportunity to revisit it, having seen the original. I remembered Benicio del Toro and Anthony Hopkins. It's kind of hard not to. They blare, you can look at that screen right there. But I'd totally forgotten that Emily Blunt, Hugo Weaving, and Geraldine Chaplin, I'd totally forgotten they were in this. And actually, it's interesting for me. One interesting thing this time around, a couple of interesting things affected my viewing. One was I just watched a documentary called The Real Charlie Chaplin. And this is my first time watching anything with Geraldine Chaplin with the association in my mind, because she was one of his kids. And she looks like him. I never really put that together before, but she looks like him. And I was like, that's interesting. And the other thing is that Emily Blunt is a great actress and I love her, but she always depresses the shit out of me in every movie I've seen. And this one was even more so because the movie's like 10 years old now. And the reason why is that we share a birthday, but I'm the older one. So it just makes me feel old. But anyway, it was worth seeing this one again. It was fun to revisit. I had totally forgotten how many great Hannibal Lecter moments Anthony Hopkins has in this movie. And yeah, so it was fun.
Okay. Is that pretty much your first impression then?
Well, like I said, that's more second impression than anything. I honestly barely remember my first impression, but yeah.
Okay. Heading over to you, Forrest. Is this a first time watch for you?
Yes, it is. I'm a huge fan of the original Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr. Which I think is, for me, I think it's probably one of my favorite, at least one of my favorite, like definitely one of Universal's best monster movies.
Oh yeah,
especially
that and Creature are like the top two, I think.
I would say, and for me, it's probably Bride of Frankenstein's my favorite.
Fair.
But I remember hearing about this when it came out. Like the cat, like the whole cat, like, I mean, you had an all-star cast, with Del Toro, Hopkins, Emily Blunt, Hugo Weaving, and then Joe Johnston directing. I was a huge fan of his work on Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, The Rocketeer. He was going to be doing Captain America the following year. I do think Joe Johnston is very, when it comes to like directors who make like who make blockbuster movies. He tends to get overlooked compared to Spielberg or Lucas or Cameron.
I mean, come on, The Rocketeer, bro, that was fucking huge. A lot of people forget how massive The Rocketeer was, but that movie was a big deal at the time.
Actually, that was a box office flop at the time.
But not for the motherfuckers that went and saw it. I was one of them.
I mean, I love
Rocketeer.
I love the movie at this point. But when I heard that it did terrible at the box office.
Yes, but it was in the conversation. There was merchandise everywhere. It was something like
exactly.
I never actually saw the movie, but I sure knew about it.
Box office performance aside, you could not escape Rocket. I think it had a fucking NES game like before the movie. Was that before or after the movie was out?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Well, I remember watching the movie I remember Disney Channel used to show the movie all the time.
Oh, I love it. I have like multiple VHS copies of it. Rocketeer is I'm not even gonna say guilty pleasure. I'm fucking proud of it.
No, it's like it's probably one of the best like superhero movies that wasn't DC or Marvel.
Yeah, it just gets left out of the conversation all the time, like Darkman or The Shadow.
Yeah. But anyway, so Joe Johnston. So everything sounded great. But then I never got around to watching it when it came out. I'll admit the reviews, because like I remember it was getting a lot of mixed reviews, both from mainstream critics and from and from like the major horror sites like Arrow in the Head and Bloody Disgusting.
Yeah, I remember those Bloody Disgusting articles.
So that kind of scared me off from watching it until now.
It might have done the same for me, actually.
Yeah. So, but I will say that. So I do think that great cast. Some fantastic special effects work from Rick Baker. I wouldn't expect anything less from him. And then you've got Danny Elfman doing music, Mark Goldblatt editing, a lot of great talent involved. But I feel like the movie itself is just okay. It's not terrible. It's not a piece of shit. It's not awful, but it's not. But it's nothing. It's not. But I wasn't. But it's not like a great. I don't think it's a great movie either.
Well, I mean, but to say that it's okay as a remake of such an iconic film is still a huge point in the movie's favor, because that's not neat. I mean, look at some of the other ones that we've got where people were like, no, this is horseshit,
Yeah. It's not
Wolfman, at least the general consensus seems to be it was a well executed, remake that just didn't go anywhere because something like Freddy Krueger or whatever, everything else pretty much has more market share value nowadays than the Universal monsters do.
Yeah, at this point I feel like Universal monsters appeal more to the hardcore fans than the slashers.
If they did this in the 90s when they were pushing all those like Universal monsters fucking fast food toys on us again for a minute and stuff like that, maybe we would have gotten into it, but it came in, what was it, 2010 or something like that.
And let's face it, there have been some great werewolf transformation scenes so
plenty of them. Again, Rick Baker. I mean, even this movie come out like nearly 20 years after American Werewolf in London. Oh, no, wait, Baker did Werewolf in London. That was American Werewolf in London, not the Howling. I'm getting.
I think you're correct. Yes.
Werewolf in London was like late 70s, so it's been a long time.
I'm not sure to remember which one Rick Baker worked on.
I believe it was Werewolf in London.
Yeah. So this movie came out nearly 30 years after American Werewolf in London, and Rick Baker still got it.
True. Yeah, I would still give best werewolf
Oscar was well
transformation
deserved.
of all time to. Well, I've actually not seen the one from this. I'm seeing stills of it, so that doesn't count. Never mind. But the one from Werewolf in London is masterful. If you guys haven't seen it, you should check it out immediately.
Okay.
I mean, I agree. The one American Werewolf in London was definitely phenomenal. I just love this one because, again, this is the Wolfman. He's not turning into like a big wolf, which is what most werewolves are, big wolves. And I don't know. I just always loved that. So, I like this better just because of that. But as far as turning into like a giant wolf and stuff, I would definitely give that to American Werewolf in London, hands down.
Is it a giant wolf though, or some amalgamation type creature? It is a giant wolf. I'm just actually making excuses. The best werewolf transformation I've ever seen though is 100% actor driven, and it's in the UK version of Being Human when that dude transforms into the werewolf as they trap the fucking old vampire dude in there with him, and he delivers like a fucking monologue as he's just in tortured pain in the midst of this werewolf transformation. And he's like, I think he says some shit like, like, you're locked in here with me type thing, and like he knew that he's gonna eat the fucking vampire is essentially the thing. And none of it is crazy effects. It's all just him with like, you could almost call it back to like the original sort of Lon Chaney type stuff, where you know what I'm talking about, Dave. He just has the contacts and the teeth, but it's the way he plays the whole thing, makes it look like he's in like this bone crunching agony that really changed my mind about werewolf transformations.
Television werewolves in my mind, and that's the BBC one, not the
not the US one,
crappy one.
That one's okay, but
the American one was awesome.
It's okay.
Awesome.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
After the first season, it fucking gets dope because they stopped remaking the BBC stuff, and
it was fucking awesome. I never seen the BBC one, which I will watch someday, but
you have to, dude.
Awesome, okay?
You have to. It has some of, especially if you guys are into like this Universal Monsters stuff.
Oh yeah,
that definitely. Original Being Human it should almost be canon to that shit, But yeah, man. I mean, it's like werewolf transformations have to look painful.
Have you guys seen Bitten? That was well done too.
So was the Howling.
The Howling's good. I always find those weird long spaghetti fingers a little fucking disorienting now. The werewolf has like these overly long fingers, so I just find myself laughing at that when I watch those transformations now. I love the Howling though. The marsupials.
The original Howling was good. The rest sucked.
Bad Moon was not too bad.
That's not true. Actually, all of them are good in their own way. It's just you gotta just watch them.
I do not
for their
like
own thing.
I do not like the
Dude, if you watch the marsupials with me, like
I've seen,
I'm pretty sure we would laugh our ass off.
I really don't like the marsupials.
Oh, it's so stupidly funny, dude. Anyways, continue. Sorry.
Was that it for your first impression then, Forrest?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Heading over to you, Tammy. Was this a first time watch for you?
No. I don't know how many times I've seen this. I get into all werewolf movies and all vampire movies, so I did really enjoy it. Anthony Hopkins is one of my favorite actors, so I think that's part of the reason that I got interested in the movie to begin with. I think they did a good job with the transformation. It definitely does look painful, that's for sure. But yeah, I really did enjoy it. I think it. I don't think it took away from the first one either. I'm agreeing with Kroll. I think, it was definitely, you didn't lose the original storyline. They added to it, like he said, and I think they did a really good job.
It looks like they did. I'm kind of reading about it and looking at stills and stuff over here, and it definitely looks like it's a solidly faithful film.
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to add on one more thing. Even though I just gushed all over Rick Baker in my last comment, I should mention that by casting Benicio del Toro as in the title role, I don't think they really need to put him in all that makeup.
No, dude, not at all. I recently rewatched all the stuff with him and Hunter Thompson, just randomly for some reason. And Benicio del Toro is probably one of the best actors that we have in our generation. I think, dude.
Yeah. Plus, I always thought he kind of looked like a werewolf anyway.
And another thing,
he does a little bit.
I wanted to mention
a little bit.
One major change they made, and I thought was just awesome, was instead of the werewolf, the original Bison being a gypsy, they changed that, and it was more random before, whereas now it was a lot more sinister in this version, and we'll get to that, who it was and stuff. But I thought that was one change.
See, but you don't get the lady with her sweet accent of being like, I can't even imitate it.
We do see some gypsies. They do have.
Okay, well, there we go.
So, but we don't hear the gypsies saying. You see the beginning, and it tells you you the man with your hat can become Wolfman.
Yeah, that whole scene, man.
Now that's it. They just show a picture of that, like in the beginning of the movie, and they never have a gypsy actually saying it. That was, I feel like, the one thing they missed in this film, because that is the one thing I remember so.
Yeah, and it's a bummer, dude. I mean, is that like a PC thing? Because that's a little dumb. I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, I get it. You're not supposed to say gypsy now. I think the Romany is the name of the actual people that do that stuff, or they have they
call them gypsies all through the movie.
That saying though was
I know, but it became like it fell out of favor. I feel like
they say it all through the movies, though. It has nothing to do with that. They just decided to change it a little bit, and they put it at the beginning, and no one was actually saying it. And I think
they did. Yes, they said it at the beginning. They showed the picture of it on the screen, and it was being said at the same time.
I must have the volume must have been screwed up on the streaming episode. Yep. I saw it on Hulu, and Hulu is usually really good, but
the whole poem is even a man who is pure in heart. He says his prayers.
He become a wolf when the wolf's bane blooms in the winter.
And there's a lady speaking it. And she is speaking it softly, but there is a lady speaking it at the very beginning.
Yeah, I never heard it, but
I still think it's a cool nod, at least.
It should have been when he was in the scene in the gypsy camp. I think they should have kept that there.
But, I don't know if anyone knows the answer to this offhand, but there are two cuts of the movie, and I don't know if you guys saw different cuts. I know if I had watched the theatrical cut, I would have been on time for Waterboy, but I apparently was watching the director's cut, which is like 20 minutes longer.
Unrated.
But, well, I guess, but it has that scene on the train with Max von Sydow that's not in the theatrical cut. So if you guys
watch the theatrical.
What's that?
I watched the theatrical.
Okay, so maybe that first scene was abridged in the theatrical. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, we watched the unrated.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we watched the unrated, not.
I think your version was slightly different than mine.
Well, there you go. Very interesting. Am I supposed to believe they cut Max von Sydow from this film?
Yeah,
apparently.
-1 star. All right.
I don't know, Mo. When you see his neatly trimmed facial hair in the movie, you probably dock it 2 stars.
So luckily, it's a 6-star out of 3. So.
Is that the end of your first impression, then, Tammy?
Yes.
Okay.
So here's a question I'm going to pose to you guys before I mostly go silent while you discuss the particulars. But, I think I put this to a couple of you when we were in private before. I feel like that now is a good time to bring it to the public. What would you rather be? Okay. A werewolf or a vampire? Now, it's important when you discuss this question to take several things into account. yes, as a vampire, you get to live forever, but you're pretty much always a fucking vampire. You can't go outside in the sun anymore. You have to suckle on people, which is a little gross in and of itself, just to stay immortal. But when you're a werewolf, maybe you just wake up bare ass naked in someone's garden every now and again. It's one night a month or whatever. Is that right? How long do full moons normally last?
I definitely would want to be a vampire. I already have a werewolf living with me, so.
That doesn't count.
I definitely want to be a vampire.
I definitely want to be a werewolf.
Yeah, I'm thinking werewolf is my lifestyle too, because if we're being honest, I've been imbibing of the spirits and the brews for many, many years, and there are several times I've woken up bare ass naked in my backyard and still had to pay for Taco Bell or something the next morning. So if I could have eaten an entire deer the night before, that'd be pretty rad, and it really wouldn't have changed much. Nowadays with a child, I would maybe think vampire. Because I could just work nights and be alive forever to make sure that she has a good life, blah, 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 a bunch of sappy stuff. But, in general, I would say werewolf. What about you, Tammy? Or you said a vampire.
Yeah.
So, Forrest.
I'm probably. I mean, I don't know. On one hand, I usually have the blinds in my apartment closed, like I'm some kind of vampire. But I don't know. I feel like I'd probably be more of a werewolf.
There we go. One more for our team, Dave. What about you, Jacob?
As I would have to say,
you Team Edward or you Team Jared or whatever the fuck his name was.
Okay, you just stepped on my point. I was going to say, as long as I don't have to fucking sparkle, I'd be a vampire.
No, there are no sparkles in vampires.
I mean, you can sparkle if you want to.
Fuck that.
We won't. Hey, if he wants to be like some disco vampire god, I'm fine with that.
Both of those are things where partly it depends on the version you're looking at, but I'd say
in general, you'd rather be a vampire?
Probably.
Why? What's the upside to living forever with such a secluded lifestyle, and really the only way that you can ever be with someone is to curse them to?
Well, again, it depends on the version you're looking at.
Who said it's a curse?
We're talking about real vampires, bitch. We're not talking about fucking taint light,
Well, I wasn't talking about that either.
Like you're let's look at Interview with a Vampire then as a general rule, right?
Okay.
I don't know. I just don't see the upside to being a vampire for that many years. Maybe I've spent too much time thinking about this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can live forever, but
I probably spend more time than anybody ever thinking of this.
What was it?
The vampire.
The George Carlin, like, these are the thoughts that kept me out of the really good schools.
Pretty much. I mean, I feel like as a werewolf, you could live a relatively normal life. You just have to have a situation set up with like another werewolf or a good friend that trusts you and is like down to just lock you into a place where you can't hurt anyone once a month. I feel like vampires, you're guaranteed to eventually draw someone else into that life that didn't want to be there, just out of your own loneliness or necessity or whatever. Werewolves, in the very least, if you fuck them up, most of the time they end up just killed. It's pretty rare when a werewolf actually like infects someone else and just leaves them alive so that they can become another werewolf. So I guess we're on to you. Well, Kroll, we already know is going to be a werewolf. What about you, Brandon?
No, I said a vampire. I've been saying
a vampire. Excuse me. Yeah,
no werewolf.
You're not on our team, is basically.
I am a vampire. Thank you.
I don't go out enough, and I don't like the concept of losing control. So no. Where it would have to be vampire because they lose control and they kill a bunch of their friends and family. Nah, I don't like that.
I'm pretty sure we can take them, guys.
Well, yeah, I'd just be saying out my movies and watching movies the whole time.
We have the world of Underworld.
Are you saying that me and you should make a vampire werewolf hybrid baby, Dave? Because I'm also down for that. I'm gonna stop talking for a bit.
Okay, let's see.
You guys have fun.
Fuck, we need some older blood here. But anyways, moving on. We have the beginning of the film that we've already discussed, the poem that it's very well known for. But we then get a shot of some wooded area that apparently we hear some howls, and then we see a man that is running towards a place of residence, and he gets attacked and mauled. Except we don't see him getting mauled per se, but it is kind and looks kind of gruesome, and that's about when we get introduced to Benicio del Toro's character as Larry Talbot, who apparently is an actor, and we get a kind of a backstory of Lawrence Talbot in this adaptation. What do y'all think about this Lawrence Talbot as we meet him?
Well, I never actually got to do my first impression, so I would.
Sure. First impressions then.
Well, it's good. I can do this right before Dustin does his. And any case, I watched this. Jake said about the same thing. I mean, I watched it preparing for the Oscars. That was basically the thing. I was surprised. I am not a huge fan of werewolf movies. I don't know. There's something about it that turns me off about the whole transformation and loss of control aspect. It's like I really both like and detest werewolf, like an American Werewolf in London. But this one actually doesn't, though I actually really did like the original Universal Monsters Wolfman, and oddly enough, I like the Howling. I was surprised because normally I don't like werewolf movies overall, but I did like the Howling. So I was surprised about this one. I really did enjoy it. I thought that the concepts were really good. If they had kept doing stuff at this caliber for the Dark Universe, they could have pulled it off, but they didn't. And it never.
Yeah, they pretty much botched it, which I think, I don't know. Am I alone in that was pretty fucking heartbreaking? You know.
Hey, The Mummy actually was a terrible movie, but it made a great video game.
I think they were all good movies except for The Mummy. The rest were good movies. And yes,
Dracula Untold deserves a reappraisal by most people, it sounds like. This one definitely was a solid installment in it. What else did we get? I mean, that was it. The Mummy one tanked it because they spent all that money on Tom Cruise's fucking weird Scientology cock. And
The Invisible Man, I don't know if that was part of it, but that was awesome.
Yeah,
that might as well have been, but I don't know.
If you're talking about the recent one with Elizabeth Moss, or are you talking about the Kevin Bacon one?
Dude, that's called Hollow Man.
Sorry. The recent one was actually pretty good.
The
Yeah.
Kevin Bacon one's pretty dope too, but I feel you, Jake. I was in that same boat too, where I was like, wait, didn't they do this already with Kevin Bacon after Stir of Echoes?
I don't think I saw the Kevin Bacon one, so yeah.
Stir of Echoes is better, but that one.
But the Elizabeth Moss one, I think, was a Blumhouse production, so that was like a whole different group behind it, I think.
Yeah, the new Invisible Man was pretty good, but most people consider Hollow Man pretty bad.
Yeah, most people are also pretty fucking jaded though on a lot of that stuff. I mean, Hollow Man wasn't that fucking terrible considering the stuff we were getting at the time, you know. Stir of Echoes isn't a great movie either, but when you consider some of the other supernatural movies we were getting, I mean, a girl buried in the fucking wall, this weird Boston fucking Flophouse is preferable to just a videotape or some shit. Yeah. Yeah.
But let's go over to
Dark Universe could have been done better, Brandon. The fact that they didn't lead with a creature from the Black Lagoon movie is a little bit weird. Am I the only person who was like, what the fuck? Why wouldn't you?
They should have done that. Like, I totally agree.
I was never a huge fan of the movie, so I don't really.
Okay, but even let's like for the sake of argument say that if you were trying to market those movies to a new generation of people with like shocking monsters and stuff like that, Creature would be one of the ones you'd be like, oh, I could see how that would work. You know,
I would start with the best one, in my opinion, the Wolfman. So then Dracula.
Well, we did get a remake of Creature. It was
The Shape of Water.
Shape of Water doesn't count, dude. As much as I like the fish sex, it was not.
I like the Shape of Water.
Shape of Water rules. It got memed for a minute as like
the fish sex
movie,
picture.
But it's a lot more than that.
It deserves best picture.
I agree. I mean, not that I know of anything to compare it to, but I would just compulsorily agree because it ruled.
Alrighty. Heading over to Dustin. I think you're done with your first impression there, Brandon, right?
Correct.
Okay. Dustin, was this a first time watch for you?
Well, I first saw this around when it came out, and I remember being like unimpressed. Like, I didn't think it was good, but I didn't think it was bad. Like, I was very, well, we saw that was pretty much my assessment of it. And I kind of forgot about it for a really long time. Up until tonight when it's like, hey, we're doing the Wolfman, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I can come on for that. And I thought we were doing the original Wolfman, and I found out almost too late to actually watch the movie that nope, it's this Wolfman. And so I thought, oh, well, I don't remember being too impressed by that. So I watched this again, and I was actually really surprised by myself after seeing it again, because this was like, I can't say it was great, but it was honestly pretty good. Like, I was really kind of taken aback by just like the production value and overall just the quality of it. I think the CGI hurts it in a lot of places. Like, it does have some really standout bad moments, particularly in the finale. I think everybody probably knows what I'm referring to, which we'll eventually get there.
But I mean, I
was pretty happy with it.
Yeah, other than that, it seems I can't speak to that because again, I gotta like watch it again. But yeah, man, I mean, it looks like it turned out better than a lot of remakes did at the time.
Yeah, and I think if they had done more, it looks like they used some practical stuff, but I think there might have been too much CGI in it as well. Because that was kind of the feeling I got. Like, it felt like there were those. It just felt like there was too much CGI, honestly, and it was distracting. Like, it wasn't terrible CGI, but it was obvious CGI.
Yeah, that seems fair. Did we get a werewolf or vampire verdict from you? What would you be if you had to be one? Yeah.
I mean, I've always in games where I've had a choice, I've generally been a werewolf.
Yay!
I'm more of a fan of like brute power.
I think Dustin tipped the scales for us. You guys are fucked.
See, now the question is when you're a werewolf, do you lose control and kill everybody around you?
You can. You know,
and that's the question.
But
that's why you have a beat set up.
Or you like Teen Wolf Werewolf,
in lycanthrope society in this day and age.
I'm more of a fan of like so in Magic the Gathering, there's a plane called Innistrad, which is like the horror plane, and I'm more of a fan of those kinds of werewolves where they have like full control and can more or less change into the wolf form like on command.
Well, that's lame. And for cheating, you get to be one of those werewolves from Howling 3, the marsupial. You're now a werewombat.
Hey, I like the speculative biology of that movie as a biologist.
Nope. You're grounded, Dustin.
I like the kind of lycanthropy where you do have control and you are malevolent. Let's put it that way.
I can say vampires can lose control just as easy as werewolves too. Maybe after a long time they learn control.
The movie equivalent would be a howling werewolf.
-2 stars for introducing a nerdy rule set. You're still a wombat. We'll talk about it later.
Howling 1 werewolves are the closest analog to the ones I was describing, so suck it.
We love you, buddy. I'm just kidding.
And I seem to recall actually going to the theater for this one with Tammy at the time. This was one that I think because she'd seen that Anthony Hopkins was in it, I think we actually did go to the theater to see it. I'm pretty darn sure that we did. So
we might have.
But
you shred your shirt off partway through and let her run her fingers through your back hair.
Oh, she does that all the time.
Well, that was on our first date.
Yeah, that was on our first date. So.
Yeah, he told me he was furry, and I told him I liked furry.
There you go.
But oh man, that reminds me of slight tangent. I used to like to watch this YouTube channel where this guy would read like neckbeard stories, and there's this one called The Tale of Wolfbeard, where there was this one neckbeard guy who like legitimately thought he was like a werewolf, and it was kind of incredible. Like you should definitely like look up The Tale of Wolfbeard. It's like this like 3-hour like thing. It's
not that uncommon, dude. For a while I was buying some weed from some people that were like roommates with this dude and his girlfriend who were like real life anime wolf people or something.
It always seems to be a couple.
Yeah, they thought that they were wolves and they would just watch like Wolf's Rain a bunch and wear like tails on their belts and but it would get weird sometimes.
Werewolf
be like,
there's this 2-tape thing. It's on VHS only of the Warrens actually doing like investigating, and there's this
and they're exercising wolf people
like man who evidently like was able to escape from like bars that were only like inches apart by stretching his like bones and stuff to get through, and then it took like 10 to 20 people to actually like hold him back down and like put him back into a prison.
I feel like I know what you're talking about. And it's like some old French case of like this beggar that was supposedly, I mean, he could squeeze through the bars because he was a beggar, and then he was just feral strong, you know. I don't think people are actually werewolves. I think it's a mental disorder, which Brandon would have more authority to comment on than I.
There's been like cases of feral children.
Yeah.
Most early werewolves are considered mental health disorders mixed with
a bunch of feral kids up here actually on the railroad.
The earliest. Go ahead.
I was thinking there was an episode of Beavis and Butthead where Beavis and Butthead mistake a homeless guy for a werewolf, and they ask him to bite. They ask him to bite him, so they ask him to bite them, so they can become werewolves. But it turns out he's just got some sort of disease.
Of course.
That rules.
Yeah, we should definitely move on. But yeah. So earlier, I was starting to tell and ask you guys about Benicio del Toro and his portrayal of Larry Talbot. What do y'all think about his portrayal of?
He's pretty good. I was impressed.
I considered him milk toast, which is, I guess I love the original Talbot character reflected. And he's so overshadowed by Anthony Hopkins when he comes in. But that's my take.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I think Del Toro is a very, very skilled actor, and he does a very good job with what he's given. But he is kind of, Hopkins. This, I had forgotten. This was, I think, one of Hopkins' more entertaining roles, I think. And
actually, I would say even Hugo Weaving overshadowed Del Toro.
Yeah. Weaving was pretty restrained by what I expect from him. Blunt, Del Toro, they were all they all did their jobs, but Hopkins was the one that actually brought a little something extra to it. And I actually thought when I was watching it this time, I was like, I'd forgotten how many great Hannibal Lecter moments he had in this movie.
It's like you could argue, though, that everybody else matched that subdued quality of like an older Universal film, whereas Anthony Hopkins was allowed to maybe do more than what he needed to.
You might be right, because it wasn't his role.
So I can't say, but just from what it sounds like, like that's
his role was the one that was. Am I remembering correctly? I think Claude Rains was the elder, and Lon Chaney was the younger in the.
That's true.
Yeah, and of course they both were quite solid, but
Claude Rains is hands down creepiest motherfucker in the Universal stable back then.
Another thing, again, with things that kind of have happened in the meantime that affected the overall impressions, is that in the meantime, Blunt and Del Toro reteamed for Sicario, which again is a movie we need to cover one of these days. And in that one, they both brought their A game. Del Toro, that is one of his best roles.
What is that movie even fucking about, dude? I keep hearing about. I've never watched it, but I've always known of it by title alone and because of the people that were in it.
It's about the border wars involving the drug trade, and Blunt is a DEA agent, and Del Toro's a Sicario.
Okay, so that's why I don't give a shit about it. All right.
But thinking about that, when I made that connection, I was like, yeah, Del Toro, he's good here, but man, he was good in that one.
Nah, I'm being facetious or whatever you call it. Sarcastic. I like movies like that. It's just, damn, man, if there wasn't a lot of those like DEA movies or like Gulf War movies for a long time there, you know what I mean? So it was a little hard to sort them out. When did Sicario even come out?
2015, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know it had a sequel sometime after that too.
Yeah, Day of the Soldado, which is weird. It's the first part of a thematic trilogy, but it also has a sequel that's not part of that trilogy, so it's kind of weird.
But anyways, so
I'm sorry, bro. I didn't mean to derail the conversation right there. I am going to mute my mic in penance for at least 30 minutes. I'll be back.
All right. So the basic gist of what happens is Benicio del Toro, or otherwise known as Larry Talbot, is an actor at this point in time, and Emily Blunt shows up as his brother's wife, and evidently he has not been told the news that his brother has in fact passed away. So at first he is somewhat rude towards her, and he dismisses it. But then all of a sudden he shows up in town, and he's drunk in a local tavern, and he overhears some stuff about what happened. He throws a drink in a dude's face, and then he shows up at his estate. Is there anything that anyone wants to talk about anything that has happened so far? Alrighty. So we get the initial meeting of him and his father, and then of course you get this look at the lay of this estate and its disrepair that it's in. It's got all kinds of cobwebs and shit on the inside, including going up the staircase. What do y'all think about the first impressions about this this castle that we are shown?
Del Toro really knows how to show off a castle, and it really has a. To tell you the truth, this almost feels like a mix between the old Dracula story and the Wolfman story. And Anthony Hopkins definitely gives off that Dracula vibe when he first comes in. I think this is, I love the castle. I think it's really cool.
It's a shame that it's so dilapidated.
Well, the castle that is used in this particular movie, most of it was done. They shot it in Pinewood Studios in Buckinghamshire, but they went to Derbyshire and Castle Combe in Wiltshire to film where they were filming. They transformed Chatsworth House by adding weeds, dead grass, and ivy. So, that being said, we get a kind of a dinner moment where I guess I did forget to mention that the fact that Larry Talbot did go and see his brother's corpse before he showed up to the home. What did y'all think about that moment? I mean, there was literally like nothing left except a rotting corpse.
I like how the werewolf victims are like mauled zombies in this. Like, it's very graphic.
He had to. He saw the body after he went to the house because he didn't know his brother was dead until his father told him. He said he came there to help search for his brother, and the father says that was good, but he's too late because they just found his body that morning.
He's so cold about it too. It's like oh, by the way, he's dead.
Yeah, his body was found, and he's dead. So he definitely didn't sound like he was remorseful at all.
And then after that is when he goes to the bar and gets drunk.
Yes.
Correct. And so, I guess we have this dinner moment with his brother's wife and his father, and they kind of have a little bit of a family reunion. And afterward,
was it wife or fiance?
It's wife, I think, because otherwise she wouldn't be.
Pretty sure it's fiance.
Yeah,
fiance. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I just thought it was kind of weird that she'd be living in the estate, you know. But anyways,
well, because she asked Larry to look into his brother's death, and that's why she was sticking around, because she wanted to find out what happened and everything. And so, but yeah, she was a fiance. They hadn't gotten married yet.
Okay. So I guess there is the unanswered question of what really happened to the dear brother and the love of her life, and they do have a moment where she asks if he can look into it, and also Anthony Hopkins also tells Talbot that or Lawrence that he's glad that he's home, and but he also on another day tells him that he should stay inside the house and not not go out for any reason because of what's been happening, and doesn't want to lose another son to this whole thing.
He also
so he says.
Well, he also questions his father about the medallion he found, and his father admits that his brother had dealings with the gypsies.
Yep.
Yeah, he was the liaison between the gypsies and the town clerk.
Yep, and that's the first mention of gypsies that we have in the film. And then I guess
also, I think it would be remiss if somebody didn't mention that nowadays a lot of people consider gypsies a slur, but for the purposes of this discussion, I think it's probably acceptable since they use it so often in the movie. So just pointing it out in case anybody listening took offense to that.
Well, there is a story that goes around that my great grandfather was left on the doorsteps of gypsies. So I am supposedly of gypsy blood.
If you're Romani, sorry.
But in any case, well, thank you for pointing that out too. I know that some people may think otherwise, but yeah. So we will refer to them as Romani.
Nah, man, they're gypsies.
I mean, it's more so, I think, a term that we're working on phasing out. So I don't think a lot of people have a problem with it, but some people have a problem with it. So it's just something worth mentioning. Like I'm not going after anybody. It's just be aware.
And I'm not sure that Romani is a catch-all for all of them. I think gypsy was widely used for all kinds of itinerant people. Exactly. But I think the Romani were like the main group. But yeah.
Yeah, that matches with the history I know. I mean, I'm not like an expert on it by any means.
But any case, so we have a moment where Lawrence goes and investigates the camps in which the Romani are living. What do y'all think about that particular segment where he's visiting this?
Well,
caravan.
He goes and does.
I think when his old man said "don't go," he might as well have just been like, he knew damn well what was going to happen. It's like he went there just to spite him. Like, yeah, I'm going. Yeah.
But in any case, what happens is he's sitting with them amongst the campfires with them and listening to their conversations, and all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose, and I believe that there is a dancing bear that is being blamed for like the incidents that have been surrounding the thing, and they're like, "Oh, he's just as tame as a lion," and all of a sudden, somebody like comes into the camp with like all like bitten and shit, and you don't see the bear. So and that's when people start running. You see the werewolf arrive, and that's when Lawrence Talbot picks up a gun, saves a woman from being attacked, and then heads off after the wolf, and then he runs into a kid that he starts to try to go towards, and he gets bitten by the werewolf, or
he gets wolfed.
Yeah, basically. And then I don't know how much time has elapsed during these next few moments, because it looks like days lapse, because it looks like night turns to day, day turns to night. It's not really mentioned how many days he was like asleep, but he was aware of what was going on. And Emily Blunt's character stays by his bedside. We see Mr. Talbot, Senior Talbot, watching her from time to time. I guess he's like maybe calculating in his mind like what kind of relationship that she has with his son.
And I think this part
he does explicitly state that she reminds him of like his wife, and so that's why he likes having her around. So I think that's probably all there is to it.
Well,
there is also
that he got that he was delivered back to the mansion after he was saved, and sewn, his neck was all sewn up and everything from the ramens, and they brought him back.
Yeah.
The woman Gerald E. Chaplin's character had ordered that he be stitched up, even though the rest of them are like, no, what'll happen, and she's like, no, her name, what was her name again?
It's okay to kill the beast, but not to kill the man. But where does the beast and the man begin and end? And that whole scene was really cool, because it's like, she's like, we're gonna save him, but the rest of them are like, we shouldn't be saving him.
I could be wrong about this, but I think this part that Dave was just describing, the convalescence period, I'm pretty sure this was the part where it was like one of my favorite moments that Hopkins had in the movie. Was like, he's just hanging out, eating an apple, got a knife, he's just, and he passes her on the stairs, and he's just slicing that apple, popping in his mouth, just staring at her the whole time. And it's creepy as hell. And I'm sitting there going, but it was great. It was like, and it's like, I think it's Dustin, I think it's you that I've heard go off about that whole CinemaSins thing. But they do have that thing about making people look like an asshole by giving them an apple. This is like the ultimate example of making someone look like an asshole by giving them an apple. I was amused by it.
Now, there is an immigrant that lives with Miss Senior Talbot that evidently has been with the family for many years.
He's his manservant. He's like his butler.
Yeah, and he's like the closest servant that he probably has to a family. But he's got this weird collection of guns and silver bullets that look fascinating. But he comes into play on the morning that And that's about when we get the first arrival of the inspector, because the inspector, who was played by Hugo Weaving, comes to see him about Lawrence about the attacks and about his whereabouts, and to tell him that, hey, stick around, we're going to be testing you and stuff.
Yep, Inspector Aberlon.
When he first showed up, like, I was like, I know that guy. Is that Ewan McGregor? Like, who is that? And it took me, I never recalled his name successfully, but it's like, I know that guy. And the entire time I was just thinking that.
Yeah, he played the Elven King, Elrond.
I recognized him as Elrond. I recognized him as Agent Smith, but I had no idea what his damn name was.
He also played in V for Vendetta as well as the dude.
Indeed. And someone else mentioned Captain America earlier. Of course,
Red Skull.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But in any case, so he's been put on notice, at least by Aberlon. And we go into the rest of the day where he walks out of the estate, and I think this is where he has like his romantic moment with like his brother's fiance, and all of a sudden he hears the sounds of horses, and he runs back to the estate, and there are people that are about to mount a search for something, and they I guess they want his help, but they also have heard that he's got this wound that has healed like immediately, so they're kind of gunning for him, and it's in fact led by the hell and brimstone priest dude that seems to show up later, and yet ultimately get attacked. I think with the rest of them later on, but shortly after this, we get this scene where Lawrence Talbot is actually exploring the family crypt, I believe, and I guess it kind of goes underneath the house, and there's like this like room that has all these candles and that are lit, and there's this chair like in the middle of it all that has like a neck holder and whatnot, and he's like kind of surprised by the lurking shadow of his father, who shows up and tells him, yeah, it's kind of a shrine for your dearly departed mother, and basically he then locks him out or in, whichever you want to prefer, and this is where we get like his first transformation that happens. What do y'all think about that transformation scene?
I do think that it's interesting how he basically has surprise more than anything else, as he's doing, because there's sort of that desperation that he needs to get something done, and he keeps trying to work through it, but of course to no avail. I thought that was interesting how they did that, and they didn't try to go out of their way to show it in the same lengths that they did for American Werewolf in London, where they made sure to show you every detail of it, like up close as they could. Whereas here it was more of you could see details here and there, and they'd occasionally pan away or pan back, which could be to the detriment or to the benefit. I actually consider it to the benefit.
I did like how when it gave a close-up of his eyes, the veins in his eyes bulged. Here and later when he was in the observatory of the insane asylum that he was eventually taken to, which is a little bit later after this. But he has this transformation, and he literally goes out and this is like Friday the 13th slasher, a montage of killings, and honestly, I love this scene. This is probably one of my more favorite parts, because there is definitely a large group of men out there, and he just literally takes them apart in mere seconds, and I believe there's the last man ended up in a not a ditch but a swampy area, and he literally just took his head off. So what did Dustin, did you have any comments on that particular scene? Or
well, the transformation was we've seen a lot of werewolf transformations, and this one was kind of unremarkable. And it was like they didn't really try to do anything different. It was just kind of like, all right, here you go. That was kind of the vibe I got from it. Which I guess there's something to be said for just sort of getting it out of the way like that. But at the same time, it's kind of like, oh, I sort of expected a little bit more, but
okay.
But sorry, I'm something. Anyway, the following rampage is pretty wild. There's a lot of. It's kind of hard to.
Describe. Maybe. Okay. Well, in any case,
I thought the whole rampage was pretty cool. He, like you said, took out all these guys, and then, the last one that's standing there, he's just standing there and he knows he's in this swamp and he can't go anywhere. He's off with your head, kind of,
Yeah, the whole rampage sequence, it happens really fast, and sorry, it was just a little hard to concentrate for a moment there. So it's almost kind of too much for this kind of movie, because the whole thing has kind of this whole dignity to it, and then it's just a little, I don't know, it's hard to put words to. But that guy gets stuck in the quicksand and he gets decapitated, and that was cool. It was just kind of the werewolf seems a little too strong, I guess, is maybe where I think I'm trying to go with this. After he transforms, he just seems he seems like he should be bulkier if he's able to do stuff like that,
Though he does look a lot bulkier than the original.
Well, the original was just a dude with some fur glued to his face, so
that didn't take much. Though you got to
people were easier to scare back in those days.
You got to admit, though, the guy actually putting the gun to his head because he's afraid he's going to basically be turned or whatever, and then just gets his head basically kicked off. in a fashion probably quicker and more efficient than shooting himself in the head. That's
well, and he had run out of bullets.
I did actually say out loud, see, it was still fast anyway.
But in any case, well, after
hold on. I was waiting for everyone else to get done. I actually love the transformation scene. It reminds me of the original, and just the way they did it. Like Brandon has said, they kind of pan away from it and then back to it and stuff. And I like the way they did it. I really enjoyed it. And like I said, Wolfman has always been better transformations than werewolves to me. I just love the Wolfman, so I really enjoyed that. And then the whole massacre scene, it was great. I loved it. And then he's chasing the guy, and then the guy gets stuck in the swamp, and he goes to he's just shooting the whole time, and then he goes to kill himself because he doesn't want to turn into a wolf and has no bullets left, and then his head just gets decapitated. I'm like, oh, that's fucking awesome. They didn't have that in the original, but like I said, that was an addition that I really enjoyed. It's definitely good to have some extra carnage, just like in the Gypsy camp when he put his claws right through that guy's head. And it came out of his face, and that was really badass scene as well. That of course they didn't have in the original, so definitely some gore in here. Not a lot for a werewolf, but enough to I think it's enjoyable, and I think it should be in there because he's a wolfman. He tears people apart.
So. This actually did have quite a lot of gore. Like some of it did look kind of like not very convincing, again, but due to the CGI, but it was still cool. Like when the claws come through the guy's like mouth, like that looked pretty phony, but it was still cool. So I appreciated that.
So after everything is said and done, he wakes up in a hole in a tree, and his papa is standing right the fuck near him, and he's basically telling him what bad things he's done. You've done very bad things. And he runs in the middle of the clearing, and he is arrested, and then he gets taken to an insane asylum, which he's been put in before. And man, this doctor that seems to be in charge of the place, you really don't like him right offhand, because he immediately sticks Talbot into this freezing, ice cold pit of water and
ice bath.
Ice bath, and this looks like one of those old asylums that had no rules. In fact, once you got in there, you never came out.
Keep in mind, back in those days, I used to study this back in the day. A lot of people used to joke, "Oh, that's the reason why you wanted to be in this field," which. Now, I admit it was interesting, but I would definitely not want to do it. The tortures, I really think that the old school psychiatry, old school mental health treatment is underutilized in horror, because the treatments that they did back in those days, that ice bath is just one of many. It's just like with some of the stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if he was trying to fill him full of insulin to cause him to go into a seizure while doing it. Though I'm not sure. I think insulin shock, this would predate insulin shock treatment. But just the general treatment of those things, locking people's heads in cages, which I believe was in a Dracula, which actually in Dracula, in that case. I liked the way that they go. As far as horror goes, you can't do horror better than having something like that. And to have a father do that to their son early on, that's pretty screwed up right there. He kind of reminds me, no, Insulin Shock was 1927, so no. But it kind of reminds me a lot of, if any of y'all played Tekken, it reminds me of Heihachi throwing his child into the volcano.
Well, and I do have to mention that Talbot has actually been having like memory flashbacks of like his childhood because the last thing he remembered was him finding his father holding his dead mother in his arms, and he didn't remember the full extent of what happened until he was in the insane asylum. And that's when he was like, "You killed her, didn't you?" You know, and that moment, and afterwards, when he's like, "I'll kill you, I'll kill you," you know.
Well, yeah, because when he's in the insane asylum, he becomes aware that his father is a werewolf.
And then, actually, I think one of the best moments in this movie it comes up here because the dude that's in charge of the insane asylum has gathered some of the best of his minds in, I guess, medical community of its time to and it just so happens that it's going to be a full moon. And he's completely convinced that he'll prove that all of these thoughts of being a werewolf and that his father is not a werewolf are in his mind.
Right, the lycanthropy is in his mind. He can't act. He's not actually a werewolf.
And in all fairness, going back to the Middle Ages, that is exactly what it was. It was a mental health diagnosis coupled with a couple of diseases that had things like elongation of the mouths. Vampirism is also considered in that similar vein.
Right. And I did like this guy being such a know-it-all. Although I felt like this reminded me, this scene seemed to me like he might also have, to put in gaming terms, the oblivious feat. His transformation is taking place behind him, and everyone else is becoming more and more horrified. And if he was paying any attention at all to anything other than the sound of his own voice, he would have realized something was not right a little sooner than he actually did. And then, of course, he runs to the door and he's freaking out. He can't find the key. And then the guy on the other side's like, well, the door's locked. You know,
well, and of course, once he gets free, I love how he's the first thing the doctor does is he takes his mouth gag out and he's like, "You fool, I will kill all of you," you know. And he does kill and mutilate quite a few within, but he does make his way to the window. Right. And Hugo Weaving, Inspector Aberlon, is watching in horror.
It's actually a surprisingly low body count for this scene. He really only attacks the people who mess with him and the doctor. Otherwise, the people that were, and he uses the doctor basically to open an exit for him because he had an agenda. He
threw him out the window.
Yeah, his agenda was not to. Though killing the psychiatrist definitely was on his agenda. It was definitely, his agenda was, I guess even in wolf form, he knew who his real target was. at the end of the day. And that was really mostly what was on his mind.
But that's where we get the Inspector Aberlon look of terror, and he's realizing how monstrous the way he looks and how it's done and all that jazz, and he ends up following and chasing him across rooftops and grabbing various guns from various officers of Scotland Yard, which is what he's part of. And they basically have this moment where they think that they've like got him trapped while he's like leaping down this alleyway and because they don't have silver bullets at all, these bullets are just pinging off of him, you know. And honestly, I don't think any of them was a sharpshooter, to be honest, except for maybe Inspector Aberlon, and he literally leaped over them and just kept on going. So, any questions? So far? Comments?
They flat out appear to miss like every shot too. Like that does not help. Because in a lot of previous, like they make it clear that the silver bullets are required in this particular werewolf story. But a lot of werewolf media lately has been just like, yeah, you can just shoot them, you know, without the need for silver bullets.
Yeah.
But even if they had silver bullets, like these guys are terrible shots.
Yeah, they're shown to be.
They went to stormtrooper school.
Cops. They were somewhat of some kind of Keystone cops from that era. So, oftentimes in film history, cops have been portrayed as bumbling and stupid. That being said, there is a little bit of stupidity on their part. But anyways, moving forwards after this particular scene, I believe we have the moment where he shows up in Emily Blunt's character. I'm trying to remember what her name was in here.
It was Gwen, wasn't it? Gwen,
Gwen
Conliffe. Gwen Conliffe.
Yeah, Gwen. She has like an antique shop or something.
Yeah. And it does have some interesting antiques in it. In fact, there is something that looks like it came out of like C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia that Inspector Aberlon just shoots the shit after he shows up, which he's looking for Lawrence, and of course Gwen is protecting him and whatnot, but ultimately we know what's going to happen next. We know he's got to face his father at some point in time. So that's pretty much what happens in this final battle, basically. But we do get Inspector Aberlon, who like sends his troops out and tries to make sure that every corner is covered and stuff like that. But he also sees Gwen riding on a horse nearby. But also there is that moment where Chaplin, I think that's who it was, Chaplin has a moment with Gwen where she basically tells her like kind of the cure, which is which we don't really hear what it is that she tells her, but we find out later. Someone who basically something to do with someone who loves the wolf.
Someone who loves you has to shoot you. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, she doesn't give her a cure. She says there is no cure. She basically says, though, this is what you have to do.
Yeah, it's not a cure, unfortunately.
No. But we do have a final moment where actually I should say he did show up at the estate and he found the body of that manservant, which was kind of gruesome. It looked like he'd been dead for like a little bit. And he goes and finds his silver bullets and puts them in a shotgun and then begins to search the place and
finds the body of some completely random guy I swore to God I had never seen before in the entire movie.
He was the guy that Aberlon said to go alert Sir John, whatever his face, that they were going to be near the estate.
Yeah, and they did mention that there was a missing dude. They hadn't heard from him in some time, so there was some lead up to that. But we also get a kind of a jump scare with a house dog that comes out of a room, but that's really nothing. But heading into like the main like I would say common area of the estate is where and when Anthony Hopkins, Senior Talbot, shows up, and they basically have their moment where you know, he tries to shoot him. It doesn't work, mainly because well, he tells him.
And Anthony Hopkins is like, I broke that gun years ago.
But that being said, they both begin to attack each other. Dog eat dog world. There is kind of a skirmish. They definitely have a
kind of.
Yeah.
We get like a werewolf battle. Like we get a full werewolf battle.
Well, what did you think of the battle?
I thought it was kind of silly in some regards. Like it was cool, don't get me wrong. It was just a little over the top in my opinion. Which normally I'm all for that kind of thing, but this time it was how do we phrase this? It got a little silly because it was just so out there, you know? Like, especially the way it ends where he like pushes him into the fire and he slashes him in the gut and he chops his head off and then he like his head CGI morphs back, like bad CGI, worse CGI in the movie, morphs back into Anthony Hopkins' face. And it's like, oh, that did not age well. That's not a good effect. Like it was,
it
was wild.
What about you, Tammy? What did you think about this final werewolf battle?
I liked the battle. I thought it was intense, and you know, they were both trying to show that they were superior, and you know, Anthony Hopkins thought that he was superior because he's been a werewolf for how many years now, and you know, the only way to take him down was basically what he did by throwing him in the fire and chopping his head off. I thought it was an epic battle. I mean, other werewolf movies have had epic battles too, so even vampire movies too. So I thought it was a good battle.
I mean, I thought it was good too. I just thought it was a little clunky, I guess is the word I would be looking for.
Well, to be honest, I don't remember a movie before this where we actually got werewolf on werewolf in a werewolf movie ever. myself. I've never seen it before. And
it's not the commonest thing.
It's not common at all. I don't think it's happened at all yet until this movie, unless you can tell me one that did, but not against each other. No, you've never had two werewolves fighting against each other. We've had like werewolf on vampire, but not werewolf on werewolf, not beast on beast.
Yeah, we have. I just can't remember the name of the movies. It was a whole series.
In Van Helsing, we had well, there was Underworld, which was all about vampires versus werewolves.
But
right, and in Underworld, there were wolves that went against each other.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen all of the Underworlds, so there's probably some stuff I'm missing from there. But just the phrase "beast on beast combat"—that's a Simpsons joke, and I love that phrase. Even the beast on beast combat that had potential.
What about you, Mr. Talbot? What did you think about the final battle?
Mr. Talbot loved the final battle. I loved how they're fighting as humans, and then they'll see the full moon, and of course the father changes first. He's more used to it, so he throws his son, and he goes flying, and then he pops up, and he's a wolf, and now the real battle begins. And I saw the Underworld, and I love those movies, but I really loved this battle between the two Wolfmen. It was definitely not something you see often. And again, the other movie was werewolves. These are Wolfmen, which is a little bit of a difference. And like I said, I enjoy the Wolfmen more, and absolutely love this battle. I really enjoyed him kicking him into the fireplace and stabbing him and chopping his head off, and then his head turning back into his father. I enjoyed that. Thought it was really great. Definitely a great finale.
The only thing is, when he takes his head off, I was like, well, that was easy. It seemed very sudden and kind of like, well, that was easy,
Well, the thing about it, you're fighting a werewolf.
It's almost anticlimactic.
A kill is going to be quick, and yeah, it was Wolfman versus Wolfman. Remember, he's younger, stronger, and I don't think when it comes to werewolves, experience is going to mean that much, because it's all mostly instinct stuff and feral stuff. So I think the younger and stronger wins out.
Yeah, I'm not sure if taking a werewolf's head off is part of werewolf lore per se.
I don't know. I don't know if it is, but it looks fucking badass.
I think it actually is.
Okay, because I also know that if you eat the lead heart of the werewolf that bit you, you might turn back into a human too. That's part of werewolf lore as well.
I know. I have a book that's just called Werewolf, and it's all about lycanthropy. And I'm actually going to give it to you next time I see you. So.
Okay, that would be cool. Anyone else want to comment on this final battle scene before we go to the final climax?
I mean, it was pretty well done. We'll give it that.
I did like that, because really, when you're talking about the classic werewolf tale, I think that there is something that's better about the classic tale when you talk about the Wolfman that doesn't add that extra excitement. But at the same time, when you're talking about taking or making a dark universe, I do think that having that battle between the two really does hit home. And the setup to it, to me, the setup was much more of a payoff than the fight itself. But it was one heck of a fight.
Okay. So the estate is ultimately on fire, and we get a search party led by Inspector Aberlon that has arrived at the estate and is in pursuit. And then Lawrence Talbot is running through the woods, and so is Gwen. Gwen is on a mission to do exactly what she's been told to do, but she also ultimately does not know whether she has the heart for it. But what does happen is that I guess he is distracted, and she does eventually pick up the gun and shoot him. But in the skirmish to get there is where Inspector Aberlon has actually been scratched, which I don't think his men know at the time. So I guess that's an ultimate setup for like a possible sequel down the road.
Oh, that's the Dark Universe setup right there, so we can have a werewolf.
Continue the curse, yes. But in any case, I think that's everything that's all said and done, except for the fact that he does turn human and does have like lasting words or last words or whatever. And, we get kind of a narration from Gwen. But what are your thoughts on the production so far?
Well, before I go to production, I want to mention something. I want to talk about that last scene. One thing that's kind of funny is I don't really jump in all the movies, especially not ones I've seen. But somehow I forgot that after she shot him, he wasn't quite dead yet. And when he grabbed her, I actually jumped. And I was like, what the fuck did that come from? But yeah, I jumped to that scene, so I thought that was kind of funny. I enjoyed that final scene. You know, she doesn't have the gun anymore, and she's talking the Wolfman down, and he's listening to her, and he's not killing her. And then when he sees the gun, he's like, "Oh well, now I'm going to kill you because you're trying to kill me." And he shoots him. It was a really good scene. I really enjoyed that. And yeah, I was going to mention that the inspector did get scratched when he was fighting Larry in the house before it was running down. So yeah, that was a nice setup that they had.
I'm not dead yet.
Alrighty, so I think we're at production. So Jake, did you want to say your thoughts on production?
I mean, overall, it had pretty decent production values. I think I can see why they might have chosen this one to give the makeup award to. I mean, I've seen better, but I've seen a whole lot worse. I will admit some of the CG was a little wonky, but I feel like a lot of the practical stuff was pretty good. And just generally, I did find it interesting that apparently they rejected Danny Elfman's score and then took it back when apparently their second plan didn't work or something. But I think overall the music and the camera and everything did a pretty good job making it atmospheric and solid generally.
To be honest, when it came to Danny Elfman's music, it kind of felt very, even though I love Danny Elfman, if the music itself, the felt similar to the music from Bram Stoker's Dracula. Very similar at times. That's my only complaint.
I agree. There was definitely moments where it sounded like if you closed your eyes, you would think you were maybe watching Dracula instead.
Well, Elfman traditionally cannibalizes upon himself a lot of the time. There's proof in a lot of things. I do think people are way too harsh on the effects in this film. The thing about CG is CG ages like bad socks. And in truth, though, I really do think that unless you really are looking to poke holes in the film, the CG doesn't hit you that badly in the end. Now, I do think that if you're looking for some form of fault, you will see it very easily. But in the end, I think if you're just watching the movie for fun, it all works out well.
I have to agree. For its time, I mean, some of the CGI kind of fairly similarly reminds me of the movie Van Helsing, just a little bit, just a little bit. But the CGI in that film was a little bit more wonkier than this. So, that being said, and honestly, there was another film that was done shortly after this that Universal did called Werewolf the Beast Among Us. That was pretty good. It was a direct to video thing, but I thought it was pretty good. That was around this time too. I think they were cashing in on the Wolfman and its stuff, and I think it did pretty well for what they were trying to do. But anyways, as far as production, yeah, I liked the estate, the way that it looked. I liked the look of the catacombs that were underneath the family crypt and stuff, and things of that note. But anyways, anyone else have any comments on the production?
I mean, aside from the CGI, this movie was actually really impressive on production. Like, the sets were great, like the costumes were great, like everything but the CGI in some places was like A+. And the only reason I comment so much on the CGI is just because it was distracting.
Okay.
I love the production, and I enjoyed the CGI. I think it just I think they tried to just add a little bit to what they did originally, and I think they did a decent job. I mean, yeah, you can tell that it's not as realistic, but I like to enjoy movies. I don't try to look for the holes. I see them. I just don't let it distract me in enjoying the movie. So yeah, I thought they did everything great. The Talbot mansion was gorgeous, and you know, everything else looked great. You know, the gypsies looked great. Everything looked phenomenal. Much like the original. Um, you know, like I said, they just kind of tweaked things a little bit from the original, and I think they stuck closer to the original, and I'm happy they did, and made a great remake.
Oh, set and costume design, exquisite for both of those at the time. And I think when you talk about production, this film really nailed it. It did deserve a lot of the Oscar love as far as like a nomination, at least.
I agree. It at least deserved at least a nod towards it. But that being said, I know we've touched on the music just a little bit, but did anyone want to comment on that part of it real quick before we go into favorites? Alrighty. So favorite scenes, everyone. Forrest, we haven't heard from you in a little bit. Why don't you tell us favorite scene, favorite character, if you have one?
All right, favorite scene. Oh, I'm not sure about scene, but I would definitely say. But again, Rick Baker's makeup. 29 at that point, 29 years removed from American Werewolf in London, and he had not let up. He had not let up since then. Just excellent. But favorite character? Oh man, I'd probably say God, I'd probably have to say either Anthony Hopkins as John Talbot or Hugo Weaving as Aberlon.
Okay. Heading over to you, Dustin. Why don't you tell us if you've got a favorite scene or favorite character?
I think my favorite scene would have to be that asylum breakout, because that was pretty good.
Okay. Do you have a favorite character?
Well, Anthony Hopkins was so cool in this role. He's like, especially that whole monologue. It's like, yeah, I killed everybody. Yeah, I'm the werewolf. You can't do anything about it. So sucks.
Okay. What about you, Tammy? Favorite scene or scenes or favorite character?
Well, my favorite character is Anthony Hopkins' character. There was a couple scenes like I liked after he was turned into werewolf the first time, and Anthony Hopkins walks up and goes, "You did some bad things, some really bad things," and just his whole demeanor and everything, the way he's saying it, I think most of the things I liked in it was his character, because he was so, actually, I don't know if mean is really the word, but he just was not very nice in most of it, but the attitude he had just, I don't know who said it before though, like with the apple, that was creepy. Yes, he had that creepiness about him, but my favorite scene is I actually do like the big fight at the end.
Okay.
So,
heading over to you, Jake. Favorite scene or scenes or favorite character?
Well, I do love the apple scene. That was great. And there were a couple other good moments. I think I was going to one that I meant to mention is when the whole contingent comes up before. I think it's when they first come up to essentially they come up to arrest Lawrence. The doctor has let them know about his fast healing. As you guys said, the preacher's kind of leading the charge or whatever, but Hopkins fires off a gun, or John Talbot shoots a statue, as it says here, described here on IMDb. So John shoots a statue next to Colonel Montfort, causing him to fall off his horse. And Montfort's like, "My eyes, damn you, Talbot!" And Talbot's like, "I'm sorry, Colonel. I meant to shoot you. Sadly, I'm not quite the marksman I used to be. I must be getting old." I just love that. I was like, just his matter of fact, like, I meant to shoot you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to miss. I was very amused by that. And I know there were a couple of other just moments that he had that just, I was like, oh, one of them was when he's, I think it was after he killed that dude that Dustin mentioned, the random, quote, random guy. But you see this picture of him playing the piano, and as he's playing it, the bloody fingerprints on the keys. And I'm like, now that is a Hannibal Lecter moment right there. And I'm like, I'm sure that has to make its way into the next production they do. But so I enjoyed those. And those would probably be some of my favorite scenes. I will give the movie a shout out for something that happens early on. I kind of don't like jump scares. For one, they almost never work for me. They almost never work. Most of the time, they reek of desperation, and they're just sometimes they're straight up annoying. But the movie starts. I think it's what his brother that you see at the beginning of the film. It starts with this stupid jump scare where like these birds take flight in front of him or whatever. But right after, immediately after, the Wolfman is there and attacks. You know what I mean? So it's like you get the jump scare, and they almost hide the actual scare in it. And I was like, okay, I don't see that done very often. So points for creativity. I don't know if anyone else would agree with that assessment, but that was kind of what I was thinking there. As far as favorite characters, I'm not going to say John Talbot was a favorite character because he was an asshole, and he definitely he definitely was not the one I was rooting for. I was rooting more for Gwen and to a degree for Lawrence. So I guess I liked them better, but John Talbot was the most entertaining character in the film, no question.
Okay. What about you, Brandon? Favorite scene or scenes or favorite character?
Well, Anthony Hopkins' character obviously is my favorite. That just he performed that part so well. And my favorite scene involved that final confrontation, not necessarily the fight, but that part leading up to the fight where he's on the piano. I think Jake alluded to it, and just that general conversation leading up to the transformation and battle. I just really liked that. I thought that really came across well.
Okay. And do you have a favorite character?
Well, as I said, Anthony Hopkins' character.
Oh, okay. And I would have to say.
What about me?
Sure. What?
Okay.
Is a favorite scene and favorite character?
Well, Lawrence Talbot is my favorite character. John Talbot was definitely well done. Very evil, and who rooted for evil? I definitely would say him. He definitely was the most entertaining character. But I really like Lawrence's, Del Toro's performance as well as Larry, and the favorite scene that Jacob mentioned is a great scene. I really enjoy it. It's not my favorite, but I really enjoyed that scene. Just wanted to point that out there. And I'd have to say my favorite is also the asylum that Dustin said, asylum scene, where he's changing, and the idiot doctor is still rambling on and on and on and on and on and on about how it's all in his head, and even not noticing the people are starting to stir and freak out and everything, and the Wolfman's just changing right behind him, and when he killed the doctor, I cheered. I just think the doctor deserved it. He's such a, I don't know, I felt like he was just a dick, to me, and I really enjoyed that. That was a really good scene. He could have wiped out everybody in that room like you said he would, but he didn't. But he wiped out enough, and then of course the final scene I have to give a shout out to, because that was a really awesome battle between the two Wolfmen. So that was great.
Alrighty, is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. And I myself, yeah, I'm going to have to go with that breakout scene too. Just the fact that he was sitting there, and after he pulled the gag out, he was like, "You fools, I will kill you all." And then Inspector Aberlon in the background around is realizing how horrifying he is. And the final battle, I like the final battle. I also like the his first slashing, as it were. Uh, just for some reason, that montage of kills was entertaining, to say the least. Malevolent. I like that word. But favorite character, okay, I'll say John Talbot, just because he had so many interesting scenes. But in any case, is there anything else that anyone wants to add? Alrighty, let's go into our outros. Dustin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm a horror collector living here in Milwaukee. I have a YouTube channel for my horror collecting stuff, The Crypt of Horrors. So I've got some more stuff I'm working on showing off soon. I also have an Instagram, The Crypt of Horrors, and you can find me on Twitter as Cryptaxis. Yeah, follow me across all the different dimensions.
Alrighty. What about you, Forrest? Tell us who you are and what you do.
All right. My name is Forrest Bennett. I'm an independent film producer and occasional actor based in Long Island, New York. You can also I've been most recent projects I was involved with were Trauma's Bring on the Damned Volume 1, and a music video called by a band called Catbite. And you can also find me on Instagram under My Name Is Not Gump, where I do comic book pickups. You can go to my YouTube channel, Forrest B. Bennett, where I do movie pickups and sometimes trailer reactions. I've always got something going on and then they're also I'm also on a show called Under the Radar, based here in New York. You can go to their channel. You can go to his channel too, Under the Radar, where we do movie reviews bi-weekly. I've always got something going on in the pipeline.
Alrighty. Let's go over to you, Tammy. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
I go on this channel and another one and talk about movies and watch a whole bunch of them and listen to what everybody else says. And I do my own collecting of music and movies. And now that it's nice out, I have a 1972 Grand Prix that I like to have fun with.
Alrighty. Going over to you, Jake. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
All right, my name's Jake. I live here in Central Virginia, where I'm an anime and movie fan and collector, and spend what time I can, which is not as much as I'd like, but a fair bit, trying to get stuff watched. Had some interesting ones lately. I've been trying to get we officially start our what am I trying to say? Nominations procedure for the Versus Awards will be starting tomorrow. So still trying to get a lot of viewing in the last minute, as I'm sure many of us are. But this can be difficult because I do have a full-time job and also a plant nursery that I'm helping to run, and just came back from a 2-day road trip where I went up to get some plant material in the mountains and also see an old friend and just generally enjoy the weather to the extent that one can enjoy 90-degree weather. But it was a pretty drive. And but like I said, I do try to get stuff in so that I can come on and talk, with you fine folks on about various movies. I'll be attempting to brave some Rob Zombie for next week. We'll see if I succeed. And meanwhile, y'all can tune into and the co-host of SeptumSin versus World. I don't know if I said that because I'm tired as hell. But last night we discussed a wonderful series, Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei, which gave us a rather fun and colorful discussion. So check that out.
Alrighty, going over to you, Mr. Talbot, even though I know you're already dead. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm disabled, so I don't work, but I watch movies, I watch TV shows, I play video games. I come on these podcasts, and I love talking about the movies I watch. Even if sometimes I don't enjoy the movie. Of course, I enjoyed all the movies this month because they were my picks. Some of my favorite movies of their particular genres. Yeah. So, I also read. I love reading books. I don't like reading movies, so sometimes we have to watch a subtitled movie. I'd rather it be dubbed. Then I can make fun of the lousy dubbing. That's part of the fun of it. But I do always watch a movie that we're supposed to watch. So I can give my opinion on it. And even though I don't like watching the movies per se, the movies are usually pretty decent, even though they're in a different language. But yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Alrighty, heading over to you, Brandon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I am SeptumSin, a SeptumSin versus the world. We like physical media here. Of course, stuff has been distracting lately because I'm working on releasing a physical media project of my own, and darned if it doesn't take up a lot of free time. But we're having a regular physical pickup. We did a recent discussion on Zetsubo Sensei, as I'm sure Jacob talked about, and we're working on things, so to speak. Now, the big thing, of course, for the next few months is going to be the Versus Awards. And Jake is wrong. It starts today because today is June.
Oh, that's 1st. Right. It is.
So,
yeah.
Already, if you go to the Facebook page for the Versus Awards, please put in the comments of each category that is posted your 6 nominees, or in some cases 12 nominees as far as Best Picture. But right now, the only 2 categories out to add nominations to are the Best Poster Design and the newly added Best Non-English Language Feature. So, what I do is I put a example of listing high to low. So high being worth 6 points, low being worth 1 point, and whatever ones get the highest point totals at the end when Jacob tallies them all at the end of June will be our true nominees for the awards. So, check it out and get to nominating.
Alrighty. And my name is David Streggy. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on this film journey. Thank you for bringing up many of these films, Ron. It's been a pleasure. And hopefully we can bring you some more fascinating trips through space and time. But I also moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, which we were just on before this, where we talk about various films, and also I do various pickup videos and film reviews from time to time, so check those out as well. That being said, everyone look around just to make sure that everyone is who they say they are, because someone might turn into a werewolf sometime soon. But in any case, everyone say good night.
Good night.
Vampire and a werewolf.
Good night.
Oh, of course,
Good
we
night.
should talk about what's upcoming for the next month.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
What is coming for the next month?
So we have actually 2 birthdays, and actually we have 3 birthdays in June. When we start at the end, my birthday hits, and we are covering on our channel. We're going to cover the series Puella Magi Magica Magica, which we'll cover on Inside Movies Galore / actually probably just try and cover them both on Inside Movies Galore, because they both kind of covered the first season, the first two movies. So that's going to be very fun. Then we're going to hit Dave, who has a birthday, which we're going to cover on Inside Movies Galore, Attack of the Killer Donuts, and Windwalker, which title's obscured by us, but here I'll briefly throw that out. See, there you go, Windwalker. And then the other birthday is actually this channel's birthday. Inside Movies Galore is celebrating its 5th anniversary. So we're doing some major celebration. We've extended invites to past members. Whether they come in or not, I don't know, but they're welcome, of course. And so we're doing the first 2 feature film discussions that happened on the channel. It originally debuted with a couple of short films, but then the first 2 feature-length films. The second film discussed was Salo, which I'm going to just do this so that the title can be there. The 120 Days of Sodom, which works because I've got a nice Criterion thing that's going to be interesting to cover. And then the first feature film that was ever covered was a twofer, where the group, and I was not a member during the time for either of these, but House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects were covered back to back. So we're just going to go ahead and do the trilogy. We're going to start at 9 next week, and we're just going to ram through it all in one big show as we hit the whole trilogy and add 3 from Hell to the end, to Jacob's Delight. And we're going to try and hit that. So please stay tuned to next week, especially because we are going to be hitting our 5th birthday as a channel, and got to celebrate those nice milestones with some nostalgia. And can't get more nostalgic than our first 2 feature films.
Mm-hmm.
I think, let's see here. I know, Dave, you were obviously here for it. Dustin, I think you sat out Salo the first time, but were you here for the House of a Thousand Corpses discussion?
Yeah, I'll be here for that.
Were you there for the original?
I was not.
No, he was not.
Huh. So really, it's just so you were there, and I think Dane was there for Salo the first time. Maybe we can get him back, at least for that one. So
yeah, I believe there were only 4 of us when we first started. Shanta was part of that. Celeste. I believe I had Dane possibly on for that one, myself, and then I believe my good friend Patrick was on for that one.
Oh, definitely. I hope we can get some old faces.
Yeah, we'll definitely see who we can drudge up for that episode. So, in any case, everyone say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.
night.
Good night.